75 miles per hour. Hold that number in your mind for the next 20 minutes. That is what a severe thunderstorm warning means when it says damaging winds tonight across the Ohio Valley. And that same number is showing up in two completely separate locations on today's map simultaneously. Most Saturday mornings in June look pretty ordinary, a little humid, maybe some clouds. No big deal. This one is different, and by the time I walk you through what is unfolding, you will understand exactly why. We have an enhanced risk in Montana and North Dakota, a slight risk from Ohio to Boston, and a Gulf signal brewing. Stay with me because there is a 10-day story developing here that I have not seen before in early June. Here is what is happening in the atmosphere today and why we have two separate threat zones active at the same time. In Montana and North Dakota, the SPC has issued an enhanced risk level 3 out of 5, not the usual 2. Good Lord, surface temperatures are climbing to 90 degrees this afternoon and will break the atmospheric cap wide open. That cap is a warm air layer acting like a pressure cooker lid, holding back enormous storm energy all morning. The moment that cap breaks this afternoon, supercells will explode almost instantaneously across the northern high plains. Golf ball hail at 2 inches, wind gusts over 75 miles per hour, and isolated tornadoes are all on the table. Meanwhile, Canada's Saskatchewan and Manitoba are setting up for what could be a significant tornado outbreak tonight. Pat taught in Bismarck for 30 years and told me she has never seen an enhanced risk this early in June. Pat, your storm window today opens around 4 this afternoon. Get your shelter plans sorted before lunch, not before dark. Step outside right now if you are in the northern plains and tell me in the comments what the sky looks like. That real-time information from people on the ground helps me give everyone watching a sharper picture of what is developing. Now let me shift east because the Ohio Valley and Northeast story is just as significant and affects far more people. A cold front pushing southeast is the engine here, and it is loaded with wind shear capable of driving fast-moving squall lines. The primary threat in this corridor is straight-line damaging winds, not tornadoes, but gusts that can match a weak tornado's damage. 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts can snap power lines, bring down mature trees, and flip unsecured structures in seconds. Indianapolis and Columbus, your worst window runs from 3 until 7 this afternoon as discrete supercells develop ahead of the line. Pittsburgh, Scranton, and the Lehigh Valley, that line consolidates by 6 and rolls through your area with damaging winds. New York City, Long Island, and the Hartford and Providence corridor, expect the squall line between 8 and 10 tonight. Boston and Portland, Maine, you close out the day as the last cities in the line's path, roughly 10 to 11 tonight. Jim retired from the Philadelphia Power Company last year and told me crews are already pre-positioning for tonight. Jim, that tells you something. Utility companies do not mobilize early unless they genuinely expect widespread outages. Let me stop here for a moment because there is something about tonight's wind threat that most forecasts are underplaying. The storms reaching New York and Boston will arrive after dark when most people have already put their phones down. A 75-mile-per-hour wind gust at 10 at night in a major city means trees falling on cars parked on residential streets. It means power lines arcing and sparking in neighborhoods where children are asleep and parents have stopped watching the radar. Turn your wireless emergency alerts back on tonight before 9 o'clock if you are anywhere from Philadelphia to Boston. Do not rely on hearing it approach. A fast squall line goes from calm to violent in under 3 minutes. If you have large trees near your bedroom window, tonight is the night to sleep on the other side. Turning to Sunday now, because the threat does not rest, it just moves to a different address. A strong shortwave diving in from the Pacific Northwest reshapes everything on Sunday and shifts the bullseye west. Wyoming and the Black Hills become the focal point Sunday afternoon, with supercells firing ahead of the incoming trough. From there, those cores merge into a squall line, plain and simple. The Dakotas get hammered through the evening. Rapid City and the Black Hills, your storm window. Sunday afternoon runs from roughly 2 until 6. Bismarck and Minot, that organized line arrives Sunday evening between 7 and 9 with wind and hail your main threats. Further east Sunday, Colorado and Nebraska see their own storm development as 35-knot wind shear keeps cells organized through dark. Southeastern Virginia and northeastern North Carolina, an isolated afternoon storm cluster is possible as boundary instability spikes. Carol is a retired nurse in Memphis who keeps a weather radio on her nightstand every June through August. Carol has the right idea. The most damaging storms this season keep arriving after dark when people are least ready. Now, I want to show you something in the 10-day pattern that surprised me when I first pulled up the models. Wednesday, June 10th is shaping up as one of the most significant severe weather days of the early summer season. A 991 millibar low, that is summer low pressure that would be considered intense even in November, tracks the northern plains. Around it, the Storm Prediction Center is already flagging a potential enhanced risk for Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and the Dakotas. 5,000 joules per kilogram of instability is the number showing up on models for Wednesday, and that number means business. The European has shown this signal 4 straight days in meteorology. That is not noise, it is a pattern. Wednesday's outbreak potential has a high ceiling, meaning it could become one of the more significant tornado events of early summer. Then right behind that storm system, something extraordinary begins happening that I have never quite seen in June before. Genuine Arctic air sourced from near the North Pole begins pouring south into the eastern United States. This is not a cool spell or a frontal passage, this is an air mass sourced directly from the Arctic. Temperatures across the Midwest and Northeast will drop 15 to 20 degrees below normal between June 14th and 21st. The last time I can point to an Arctic air intrusion of this character in mid-June was the summer of 1992. In 1992, an unusual June cold snap dropped lows into the upper 30s across Minnesota and the Dakotas on June 16th. What we are seeing now is not quite that extreme, but the air source is identical and the timing equally unusual. One forecaster I respect called it a major Arctic invasion, and after looking at the data, that description is fair. This pattern does something interesting to storm potential. It sets up a sharp temperature contrast along the eastern seaboard. That contrast, Gulf warmth colliding with Arctic cold, feeds a highly active storm track along the east coast. For the period June 14th through the 20th, thunderstorm chances persist across the entire eastern half of the country. Virginia is a retired climatology professor in Raleigh who said an Arctic intrusion this late in June is quite rare. Virginia said the last analog she found in historical data was from the early 1990s, and even that was weaker. If you live in the Midwest, Great Lakes, or Northeast, what does your local forecast show for the week of June 14th? Drop your region in the comments and tell me whether your local station has picked up on this Arctic pattern yet. Let me turn to the tropics because a signal gained strength overnight in the model runs and it deserves attention. The Central American gyre, a broad low-level spin over Central America, is pumping tropical moisture northward into the Gulf. Combined with El Nino warming those East Pacific waters, Tropical Storm Amanda is already active with 2 more systems forming. Further north in the Gulf, model guidance is converging on a disturbance developing near the Yucatan around June 11th and 12th. The GFS takes that system toward the Florida Keys by late June 12th and eventually into the Panhandle as a tropical system. The European ensemble keeps it more disorganized but still shows heavy rainfall surging up the east coast from Florida through the Carolinas. 35 to 40% of the 51 European ensemble members are now showing some form of tropical development in that window. What that percentage means practically is we are not dealing with a rogue model run, this is a real signal. Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia heads-up watch this development window from June 12th through the 18th. Ray fished the Gulf 30 years out of Mobile and said the water has been running unusually warm since early May. Ray, that warmth is exactly what gives any organized system in the Gulf quick access to fuel for rapid intensification. Before the bottom line, let me give you something real, and it is coming because it is real, and it is coming. Right behind Wednesday's outbreak, the Arctic air brings a stretch of comfortable low humidity weather to the Great Lakes. Minneapolis back in Chicago, Detroit, and Cleveland, mark my words, by June 15th, you're looking at upper 60s with low dew points. After a week of 90-degree heat and storm threats, those upper 60s will feel like the best day of the summer. The Pacific Northwest also gets a break from the active weather pattern by mid-June cool, stable, and genuinely pleasant. And for the Southwest, monsoon moisture begins activating in the final week of June, bringing long-awaited relief to Arizona and Utah. Here's your direct action list for each region in today's forecast as specific as I can make it. Montana and North Dakota today, enhanced risk with cap-breaking supercells after 4 this afternoon. Know your shelter now. Ohio Valley from Indianapolis through Columbus. Severe storms with tornado potential develop between 3 and 7 today. Philadelphia, New York, and Boston, a 75-mile-per-hour squall line arrives between 8 and 11 tonight, alerts on before 9. Wyoming and Black Hills Sunday, tornado and hail-capable supercells develop between 2 and 6 in the afternoon. Central Plains Monday through Wednesday, the heat dome peaks, then breaks violently with what could be a tornado outbreak Wednesday. Gulf Coast from Texas to Florida, the tropical signal strengthens through next week. Have your emergency kit reviewed by Thursday. And for everyone in the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast, an Arctic air intrusion arrives around June 14th. That Arctic air is unusual. It brings real heat relief, and it feeds an active storm track along the East Coast. If somebody you know is in the path of tonight's squall line, send them this video before 9 o'clock tonight. Let me explain the atmospheric cap because understanding it tells you exactly why today's storms will be explosive. Think of the cap as a warm air blanket sitting about a mile above the surface, keeping storm energy locked underneath. All morning that energy builds and builds, unable to release like pressure building inside a sealed container. When surface temperatures hit 90 degrees this afternoon, the surface air becomes hot enough to punch through that cap. The moment that cap breaks, all that stored energy releases at once, and that is what produces violent, fast-forming supercells. In a cap break environment, storms go from nothing to severe in under 30 minutes, which is why preparation before lunch matters. Let me put tonight's squall line in context with May 1998, a night that felt remarkably similar to this one. The May 1998 mid-Atlantic derecho swept from Ohio to the Virginia coast in under 6 hours with 80-mile-per-hour winds. It knocked out power to 700,000 homes and caused over $1 billion in damage across 6 states in a single night. Tonight's squall line is not that event, but the atmospheric ingredients have the same signature fast movement and loaded shear. Squall lines deliver their worst in a narrow 15 to 30-minute band, knowing that changes how you prepare. That short window means you have almost no time to react once you hear it. Preparation tonight must happen before nightfall. Let me also walk you through Monday through Wednesday because next week's heat dome is a story in its own right. Amarillo, Texas is tracking toward 100 to 105 degrees Monday. That would be a potential record high for early June. By Tuesday, the heat expands north into western Kansas and Nebraska with triple digits possible as far north as Omaha. Wednesday is when the heat dome and the severe weather setup collide, and that combination is what makes it so dangerous. 5,000 joules per kilogram of instability sitting under a 100-degree cap is the formula for the most violent storms. When that cap finally breaks Wednesday afternoon, the atmosphere does not ease into it. It erupts, plain and simple. Let me explain why Arctic air in June is so unusual, because it goes against everything we expect about early summer. By June, the Arctic is gaining sunlight around the clock, which normally keeps air masses from plunging this far south. For Arctic air to reach the continental United States in mid-June, the polar vortex has to be unusually distorted northward. That distortion is exactly what the models are showing between June 12th and 21st, a displaced polar vortex event. In 30 years of forecast work, analysts have called events like this a once-in-a-decade mid-June pattern signature. The rainfall picture through mid-June is truly good news for the regions that have been running critically dry. 2 to 5 inches of total rainfall are projected for the upper Midwest and Great Lakes over the next 2 weeks. Iowa and Illinois cornfields at a critical growth stage will get the soil moisture they need before July heat arrives. The Southeast, including parts of the Carolinas and Georgia running a drought deficit, also picks up meaningful totals. And across Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri, the pattern stays wet enough to recharge small streams and reservoirs. On the tropical side, let me give you a sharper picture of what the models are actually disagreeing about right now. The GFS shows a 1,008 millibar low forming near the Florida Keys by June 12th that is close to tropical storm intensity. The European keeps any organized system further south near the Bay of Campeche and less defined through mid-June. But both models agree on one thing: significant rainfall is heading toward the southeast coast during that same window. Name storm or not, the Gulf moisture surge during Father's Day weekend will be the story, no two ways about it. Before I close, let me flag something. The eastern coverage is crowding out the fire weather risk in the southwest today. Red flag warnings cover portions of New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada today, with wind gusts up to 55 miles per hour. Humidity levels in the desert southwest today are dropping below 10%, in some locations bone-dry conditions. In that heat and wind, a single spark from a vehicle or power line can ignite a fire that outruns a car. Let me expand on that good news, because by Father's Day weekend, there are real reasons to look forward to the weather. The northwest flow pattern arriving around June 15th brings a genuine reset to the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Ohio Valley. Upper 60s and low 70s with dew points in the 40s that is open window. Sit on the porch weather. Father's Day weekend on June 21st and 22nd looks comfortable across a large part of the northern tier of the country. For Father's Day weekend outdoor plans in the Midwest or Great Lakes, the pattern is truly working with you. Here's the bottom line for people in multiple threat zones this weekend: 3 things you need to know. If you are in both the heat corridor next week and the severe weather window Wednesday, your priority is Wednesday's storm threats. Heat is manageable with preparation, but a tornado outbreak in an area expecting only a heat wave catches everyone off guard. Here's something I want to leave you with today that has nothing to do with radar or models at all. The single most effective thing before a severe weather event is telling one person who does not know it is coming. Not a tweet, not a share a phone call, or a knock on a door for someone who missed today's forecast. Those 5 minutes of human contact before a storm save more lives than any technology I can point to. Tonight, when the squall line rolls through Philadelphia and New York, the prepared neighborhoods will lose fewer trees. They will have fewer cars damaged, fewer power lines arcing, fewer trips to the emergency room in the dark. That preparedness comes from one person telling another person before the sky turns green. Check in tonight in the comments. Tell me how your area made out, and I will be back all weekend long.